Hello and welcome to the Small YouTuber Show. My name's Johnny and I'm with LD this morning. How are you doing, sir?
How are you? I'm good,
Yeah,
man.
I'm very, very well. The weather seems to have
It's a
changed.
beautiful day out here.
It's now the weather has suddenly come back to the United Kingdom and
But
it's sunny
you,
outside.
you know it's
We
meant to change tomorrow.
what back to being rainy?
Yeah.
Okay,
Because it
well,
was it
let's
was like
enjoy the
3 days.
sun
Yeah,
whilst it,
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. As soon as this finishes, I'm outside, man. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
100%. Yes, so we have been blown away by the love that you guys have shown us on the show so far. We've had some amazing comments. We've had some people come in and hang out with us, subscribe to the channel, hit the like button. They've done all of that. It has been really, really amazing, especially for the fact it's just two guys who are just hanging out in a show, talking about whatever comes to our minds. Today is another subject where we're going to be talking about the cost of living, a big subject, especially with the
Huge.
things that are going around us at the moment. People are really struggling. And I just thought it would be really good for us to talk about it and share our opinions and, and basically discuss the things that we've seen firsthand. A lot of the time sometimes we have to go to booklets, but this is something that we're living and we are
Nice,
all
nice.
living in it right now.
Yeah.
If you haven't already, check out a video that I put. It's exactly the same name as the live stream. It's a video that I posted yesterday. There's been quite a few shorts as well. I even managed to interview someone who was out on the street, believe it or not, and we spoke for a little while about subjects such as, health, national health, and the
That was
state
a
of
great
things.
interview. Yeah.
Oh, I really thank you. I really
It was
appreciate
great.
that. To be honest with you, it was the first time I'd ever done it. The actual gentleman was spot on.
He seemed like he had been waiting for you to interview him.
I am not joking, and I'm telling you
You hit it
now.
out the park, man. Yeah.
If I can get to speak to people like him every single time, then
Mm,
I believe I'm going to be a on the road interviewer from now on. It was so
serious.
easy. I literally
Yeah.
asked him a question, even if it was a closed question where it was just like a yes or no answer. He
Just went
still
woof.
he still just came out with something and started
Yeah.
talking. And I actually edited. There's bits of the video I couldn't put in, just ran
Really.
out. I was like, I don't want my video to be too long.
Yeah. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was just a really, really good experience. And like when you're a small YouTuber and you're trying to grow your channel, a lot of the time you're trying to work out things. What works for you? What works for your channel? Is it something that this will can I take my channel in this direction?
Yeah.
I've done long form, I've done short form, I've done live streams. Well, actually going out into the actual street and talking to a random person was
Mm.
new to my repertoire, and actually it was a really, really good experience. And yeah, so if you can check out the video, it's an eye-opener. There's a little bit of research in there because we were talking about the history of the cost of living crisis, because we've given it that name in the modern world. In the modern world, we call it the cost of living crisis.
Mm-hmm.
Ancient people knew it in a different word. They called it poverty. And it was quite simple. It was very, very simple. It was either you had enough money to feed your family or you didn't.
Yeah.
And in many ways, there wasn't a safety net with a social system to cover for you if you didn't. If you couldn't, if your fields, if there was a famine and your fields didn't, there was no yield from you went hungry. That was it.
I decided to swap the word out, poverty, and just say cost of living crisis
I think it's.
for optics,
I,
possibly.
I personally believe that when we are talking about the cost of living, remember, to be alive, there's a cost. Can't live for free. People are working hard. They are spending hours of their free time to sacrifice, sometimes being with people they don't like.
Yeah.
They're struggling with customers and having to deal with very difficult situations. They're having
Yeah.
to negotiate politics in the office and all these different things that they have to go through to make money to be able to spend it on what they want to
live. Yeah.
live. Well, then you factor in that the money that they've just done, all of just what I've just said, the mortgage takes a big bite, the rent takes a big bite, you know, the council tax takes a massive bite, the taxes they pay take a well, that the taxes were bitten first, right? You know,
Always,
if
always.
you're self-employed, then fair enough, you may be able to
Yeah.
manipulate the situation a little bit easier. But if you are, you know, an employed person, before you get your money, the government's already taken their bite. Yeah. So you're already dealing with less. Then obviously you're being double taxed on things you buy, your food, your clothing, the just to run your home. And at the very end of the week, you know, at the very end, what's left? Not a great deal. You know, and that obviously is where this whole concept of the cost of living is kicking in, because things that were not necessarily the biggest expenses of yesteryear are now
Yeah.
massive expenses now.
Mm, mm.
I watched a video recently of a journalist who was going out on the street and just asking what percentage of your wages goes on rent. And when you hear over 50%, over nearly 60%, and you think you can't function when once all of the other things have been taken out, half of that what's left has gone as well. It's
Yeah.
so difficult to comprehend, and that's why I thought it would be nice for us to talk about basically what's been going on in our worlds, in, you know, our observations of how this is affecting people, whether they be older ones, younger ones. And there's something I want to talk to you about as well that I think has just blew my mind when I spoke with this gentleman yesterday. But I just wanted to know if I could get some ideas of where you see where we are in the economy right now. Where do you see it?
It's not looking good.
No.
that's
No.
yeah, I mean, that's one thing that everyone can agree on.
Yeah.
The economy is one thing, but I think it's compounded by the fact that nothing seems to work as
Yeah.
well within the country. Everything seems to be failing. Everything seems to be dysfunctional. And then we look to our leaders, for want of a better word, and they seem to be having a great time compared to everybody else. Do you know what I mean? It just
Yeah.
seems, there's something, it's the injustice of it that kind of kicks a lot of people in the teeth. And I think that's what's making everyone feel much, much worse, because it seems like there's always been the rich and the poor and then
Yeah.
everyone else in between. But now more than ever, it just seems like that gap has swollen to epic proportions. And now they've come for sort of the middle classes. The middle classes have been swallowed up. The economy is, to me personally, hasn't really recovered since, I think we've spoken about it before previously, since 2008. It hasn't
Yeah. The
been
financial
more
crash.
productive. Yeah, it hasn't been any more productive than before then. So since that crash, we've never really got back to where we needed to be. So
Does it feel like since 2008, and obviously for many people who watch videos like this, 2008 might as well have been the 1800s, because they were children. You know,
yeah.
we were still around in 2008.
Mm-hmm.
Does it feel in many ways like we're treading water? Like, you know, sometimes you're going with the flow. It feels very much like we're stagnant.
I think a lot of people are used to treading water. I don't think this is treading water. I think a lot of
It is
people are
drowning.
swallowing water and drowning. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. This is,
Yeah.
I think that's in the rearview mirror. Where people
Yeah.
are struggle. This is different. This is different. And I think, so cost of living crisis, we're talking that term was coined more for, I would say, COVID times. So from around 2021, roughly,
Yeah.
they've come up with this new term to describe poverty.
Yeah.
Before that, we was talking about the working poor.
Yeah.
So people in work having to use food banks.
Mm.
So there was this issue already. it was already, what's happened is it is accelerated through black swan events. So COVID,
Mhm.
the war in Ukraine, yeah,
Yeah.
um, the managing of COVID and after COVID and whatnot. All of these things have knocked the economy sideways,
Yeah.
and I don't think these guys now. I don't think they've got a clue about what to do to try and get back. You know,
Yeah. I
I
feel
think
like sorry, go on, please go on.
I think the answer for a lot of people will always either be we either restrict and tighten our belts to get through it, or we're going to print money.
Yeah.
And they've tied, when the Tories came in, their whole thing was austerity. So from
Mm.
2010, we've been
Cutting back.
tightening our belts anyway.
Yeah.
So that to 2021, austerity, lots of poverty, and then 2021 black swan event. So it just sent it into the stratosphere.
Mm.
And if you look at how many people were using food banks in 2010, you're talking about, I think it was about 12,000 people.
It's
Yeah.
crazy.
2021,
Yeah.
3 million people.
And I was about to say, the concept of the food bank
Yeah.
was something that um you saw in other countries. You didn't necessarily think of it as
Mm,
being here.
yeah.
Um,
We've got nurses that use
no,
food banks.
yeah, exactly. And that's when I think you hit the nail right on the head. It wasn't a problem until it hit the middle classes.
Yeah.
In many ways, it was the working, as you said, the working poor. It
Mm,
was okay when it was them.
hmm.
It wasn't coined as a thing. It was just, oh, you're just poor.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
obviously once it started to affect um the main, almost, a big chunk of the
The
population,
middle, the swollen
it
middle. Yeah.
became a big thing.
Hmm.
I always find it fascinating that we, as you said, we were tightening our belts. We had to, because we dumped a lot of money into the system to try and bail out the bankers. um, you know 2008, the
Hmm.
taxpayer took on a massive amount of debt. We will never pay that off. I don't think that's ever going to be paid back. And how it was affected was there was just a shutdown in the spending of the things that we need.
Yeah.
National health cutbacks, social programs cutbacks, the police cutbacks.
Hmm.
There was cutbacks everywhere you could look. And I don't know how you would think that if the population is rising and there are more people being born and there's more people coming to the country, why would you make things that we need smaller? You can't make less people do more work. You
Yeah.
will eventually get to a point where it's the breaking point, where there's no. And so now, and as I said, in 2000, there was a period of time where you and I would never ever see nurses striking, doctors striking. It was almost like no matter what they do, they won't strike.
Yeah.
They're okay. They're going to be all right. It doesn't matter
Doctors,
what,
nurses,
they
all the hospital staff. Yep.
yeah. Do you get what I mean?
Hmm.
It was almost like, if you strike, it's because, oh, you're just greedy. You
Mm.
can't call the nurses that pretty much kept this country
Teachers.
afloat during the
Hmm.
COVID period when everything shut down.
Yep.
We were going outside of our houses and
Banging
clapping,
pots and pans.
clapping to support them because we needed them.
Mm.
And then once that was over, we've discarded them, and it is disgusting. And as I said, to see nurses having to supplement their wages by having to go to food banks,
Mm.
I find that detestable, disgusting, and the people in power should be ashamed of themselves for allowing this to happen. I have
I don't think
never
there's.
in my sorry,
I don't think there's any shame over there. I
but
don't.
this is why I find it so frustrating that you
There's
and
no
I
shame
can
there.
see that that's wrong.
Hmm.
I understand we need I understand that in the current climate we need a military deterrent. I fully understand that we need a police service that is functional. I totally understand that the basic things that are they're almost like necessities. We can't escape them. Don't cut them back.
Mm.
You know,
Well, they sort of complicate everything and try and make it seem as though these issues are complex, and they're not complex at all.
they're not.
If you accelerate poverty,
Yeah,
along with that will go crime.
yeah,
So you're trying to sort of, why is there so much crime, and question this and have all these sorts of talking heads about stuff like this. And you've got all of the statistics and all of the data that go back hundreds of years that tell you when poverty rises, so does crime.
yeah.
Yeah,
And
it's
and
not
and
it's
it
not
won't
hard
just
to understand.
and it
This is
won't
all
just be
political will.
yeah, it
Everything
won't
is
just be
political will.
crime from, it will be crime across the board. We saw a little bit about that when we had the riots a few years back. When
Uh,
when the riots kicked off, it was like, oh, it's just the youngsters, the chavs, they're the ones. Actually, there was quite a few well-to-do people being arrested, and they were being arrested for burglary.
yeah, yeah.
Not just rioting. They were going into shops and stealing, just
But
like
you know
everybody
that
else.
they were putting people in prison for stealing like bags of rice
Yes, yes, I
and
know.
food. Like,
It was pretty crazy. It was a very, very crazy time. But I feel like we haven't necessarily escaped that period yet. We've just got older. The situations
yeah,
haven't changed. We are still in a
100%.
situation where um, people are struggling. They are really struggling because when you don't have enough money to just live, you will still need to spend. And so that's where the credit card and the loan comes in. These are
Mm,
the things that have supplemented people's wages, which is crazy, right? Because you are now in debt to someone else just to
yeah,
live. And that's when you realize, man, this is getting bad. This is really, really getting bad because when you're seeing the spike in bailiff work, bailiffs can't finish their work. They've got so much
yeah,
overtime right now, and they're
yeah,
chasing up
yeah.
people for silly. You didn't pay your council tax. You didn't pay you know,
He
your
was driving at
loan. 22
22 miles an hour in a 20-mile-an-hour zone,
Yeah,
and
and
you owe
obviously
60 pounds. Yeah, yeah,
that
yeah,
tripled
yeah.
and quadrupled, and before
Hmm.
you know it, it is mad. We tend to think, oh, okay. We The gentleman that I spoke to in the video the other day, he said that he never in his lifetime ever thought that the United Kingdom would look like this. And it did make me think, yeah, we have for many years always gone, well, it could happen to them, not us,
Mm.
because we know what we're doing, you
Do you
don't.
think do you think that though? Because to me, okay, I agreed with most of what that guy said,
Yeah,
definitely. But then I'm also thinking this is a country that has a functioning monarchy,
yeah,
and we are the citizens, and we're so. Just looking back through history,
yeah.
you could say that you never expect to see that in this country in modern times, I guess. But
Mhm.
the history of this country would show you very different. Like,
Do you mean as in, so what I get from what you're saying is that the history of the United Kingdom was, you had royal family, um, the gentry, and then you had the peasants, right?
yeah,
And over time, the peasants have started to earn more.
hmm,
They've slowly been able to work their way out of poverty.
yeah,
Yeah. They then became a, a large enough group that not only did they no longer have to live on the land of the landowner, they themselves could be landowners. They could own their own property. They could now become
to a
part,
degree,
to a
yeah,
degree. Yeah, obviously,
yeah,
I get that. But now it's gone full circle because now what they worked so hard to get
mm,
is now starting to slip away from them because they were not able to sustain that growth to allow their children to benefit in the same way that they did. This is the last generation or should I say not the silent generation, it's probably like, well, I don't know which generation it is. Is it the baby boomers? Maybe the baby boomers. The baby boomers are the last generation that have the freedom of the model where it was the home ownership, and there was the I'm going to work on one wage, my wife will stay at home and raise the kids, and all of that, and
Yeah.
and I'll be able to go on 3 holidays a year, have a nice car, do all this one wage, and still have money to save into into a savings account, high interest account.
Yep.
That they were the last generation to be able to do that.
For now.
For now, obviously, you and I, we've discussed where the future looks. When people finally give up on fiat currency and go in other directions, where they will be able to get their wealth, build up their wealth. The generations now they're just not there. It's just not available to them. They might be able to have the house, but they won't be able to save, or they might be renting, but not have enough to save for a home, or they may be staying at home with mum and dad, but mum and dad, living. I watched a video yesterday where it said the perfect model for living good right now is to have a rich dad or mum. I don't want to be rude, but he actually said, if the model that you are currently in is you have a rich dad, you're okay. It's cool. It's gonna work. But for everybody else, you're gonna have to graft. And in many ways, it's hard to graft when the things that you need to be able to
what grow, are you grafting for?
Yeah, well, exactly. Because if let's just say now the average deposit for a home, you're going to need what, 80 grand, 90 grand if you want anything nice.
I think it'll be lower than that, but even if you're saying 40, 50 grand, that's still well out of the reach of most people who have to pay so much to rent.
Yeah.
So then how are they going to save?
I think the reason I say that is because house prices are so high now. And if you could have if you want a mortgage that you won't be paying for when you're a pensioner, you're going to need quite a sizable deposit. And if it's with you and your partner, you can somehow raise 40 grand between you, then there's a chance you may just be able to do it.
I think it's possible, but
it is possible, but it's a lot. But obviously, for that kind of saving, you're going to be doing that for a while. But this is what I said. There are some people where what we're saying right now, it means nothing to them. If they're trading, in London or in many of the major cities around the world, then this is just like, what you're talking about. Like, I trade, or I'm a dealer, I do this, I do that. It's not a problem. But there's a big chunk of the population who are going, yeah, we used to say you live paycheck to paycheck. But if you have debt, you're not living paycheck to paycheck, because if you're already behind.
I mean, we're talking numbers wise, there's something like 21 million people that are struggling to pay bills. 21 million.
What, in the UK?
In the UK, yeah.
There's only 60 plus million of us. No, I don't know how many millions.
I think it's nearly 70
million of us. And so what? Nearly a quarter of the population.
Yeah. Well, it's probably more than half of the working population.
Of course, yeah.
So, yeah, it's crazy. I mean, going to the causes of inflation, we're looking at what they would say inflation was one of the leading causes, right?
Yeah.
So when it hit, I think it was 11, 12% a couple of years ago. That in itself was like the highest it's ever been in about 40 years.
Yeah.
So you're talking about generational. This is a generational high, and it couldn't be at a worse time, in the middle of the war, in the middle of COVID. I mean, the war, they keep bringing the war up, but I think it's important because Ukraine is very important for food stability because of them supplying grain, right? Russia with energy.
Yeah.
So those two alone, the the distribution and the production of energy, same with the food, these create like supply shocks to the
Hmm.
system, and that has been what has exacerbated everything over the last few years.
Yeah.
Um, I,
Well,
yeah,
wasn't that the big thing? If you, as you said, the big thing. I was one of them that when my energy company offered to fix price my gas, I jumped at it because I thought, oh, I need to fix. Only for a few months later for the price to go down, and I thought, you crafty beeps,
yep,
because
yep,
the fear mongering was, this is a long haul.
hmm
You know, there is going to be massive shocks in supply of
hmm
gas, natural gas, fuel, and because of that, you need to fix your price at this level.
yep,
And obviously, um, the food prices went up as well.
mm,
Um, and
yeah,
it was, as you said, it was like a domino effect of everything was
hmm
going up.
yep,
And for the average person, they were thinking, well, I've already overstretched with
mm,
my mortgage payment or my rent. I'm already overstretched there. How do I find, I heard many times, do I eat or do I heat my house?
mm,
Now that's a big thing to say to, and I it really touched me because I thought there are elderly ones who've worked all of their life. They should
mm,
not be going through this. You have worked, you've earned the right to your pension. Your
yep,
pension should not be, you shouldn't be, you know, having to struggle to live just because of your pension. You did what the government told you to do. You worked hard. You put aside a part of your money every month or weekly to be able to look after yourself in later years. And then you get to those later years and your pension is shortfall. There's a shortfall, and you're
mm,
thinking, how is this possible? One of the comments, and we're going to talk about this probably later on. Um, as I said, the gentleman that I spoke to in the video that I made yesterday, he said that his father pays £6,000 per month for his nursing and residential care. So he's in a home and he pays £6,000. And this gentleman said, my dad is paying my inheritance away,
yep,
basically, to to look after himself. Now, I don't know any of the ins and outs, and to be honest with you, I would like to probably speak to him again and talk to him a little bit more about that, because that's a whole new thing to me. That
mm,
the whole concept of the residential care, it's a big business, and it's
um,
going to get bigger because we're getting older. You
yeah,
know,
of course.
the
I mean,
population.
typically, what they would do is take the house, sell the house,
Yeah.
and money that they get from it, that's what they're going to use to just pay off.
Mm.
So yeah, that is the child's inheritance or the son's or daughter's inheritance, going to social care, because these guys haven't come up with a credible system
Mm.
for how to deal with the elderly in old age.
And the thing is, right, and you and I will remember this. There was a period of time where, and it could be cultural, because that's another thing as well that I was thinking this, that in many cultures around the world, you don't send your older ones to a home.
No.
You look after them, you take care of them, you bring them
Hmm.
to your home.
Yep.
And yeah, do you know what? It's going to be difficult.
Yep.
They're going to be moany because they're older, and there's going to be certain things, but they were there for you when
Yep.
you were a baby. You know,
Hmm.
they were there for you when your nose was running. They were there for you when you needed to go here, there, and everywhere. And they did that. Now, as I said, it could be a cultural thing, but and obviously there are some people that don't want to live with their children. I've
Yeah.
already got rid of you. I don't want to, be a burden. And I hear that a lot. I don't want to be a burden. And I
Mm.
get that. But the worst case scenario is you're now spending 4 to 6 grand a month.
Crazy.
It is insane. And yeah, you may have sold your house for 500,000. That's not going to last very long. Do
Not at
you get
that
what I
rate.
mean? That's
Yeah.
not going
Yeah.
to last very long when you think about
Mm.
it. So you, in a sense, you will need to have some kind of revenue stream
Mm.
even past your pension to the
I mean,
valid.
these are the things that everyone's going to have to be thinking about going, even from your 30s, 40s upwards, you're going to be having to think, like right now, if the rate of inflation was 11%,
Yeah.
in order to survive, you need to be investing
Hmm.
to get back more than 11% in
Yeah.
order to, do you see what I mean? You'd be
Because
needing to
yeah,
make,
exactly.
yeah?
And it's not, and yeah, fair enough. Inflation has gone down from that high point, and so things have, because the one thing I noticed was when we were at the height of inflation and things were really really bad. When you went into the shops, there was less things to buy, wasn't there? They
Yeah.
spread out the food longer over the aisle, and there were
Mm,
things that I took for granted I could buy were no longer available. And I
yeah.
thought, this is the new normal. The new normal is there's things that I would like to buy that are not available to me. And as you said,
Mm,
there were shocks, Russia, um,
yeah.
there were, COVID. There was
I
lots of
also think Brexit has something to do with some of
Brexit
the
as well. Yeah. So these are, we are sort of,
trade.
that was the cold, and we've got all of the symptoms now. They're here,
Hmm.
and we can't quite put our finger on it. But the one thing that we all can agree is that we're all currently feeling the
Mm,
pressure of higher prices, higher cost of living. And if this carries on, there's going to be a societal break. As you said, there could be, you know, we're in an election year, which is also not going to help for
mm,
both us and the Americans. They are both going through. So there's going to be changes of whatever kind that may be, um, in and around what's going on at the moment. Everyone's going to promise you the world right now. So this year, anything they promise you, take it, because they're going to take it back next year. But
yeah.
yes, by all means, we'll charge you less tax. Well, no, we understand that taxes don't pay for anything.
Yeah.
You print money for fun, so our taxes do nothing. You could quite
Mm,
easily still. This is the biggest thing which really frustrates me, is that if they want to do something, just print money. They don't go, let's go to the Bank of England or to the Federal Reserve and say, sorry, all the taxes that were, accumulated from the workers, can we spend that? They're going to
yeah.
go, there isn't any. we
Exactly.
don't have
Yeah.
that. Where do you think that's gone? you know, so they just print,
Mm,
and the cycle continues, because the more you print, the less value there is. And we are, we are now with the little money we have, we're chasing things that are shooting up in price.
I don't think they're going to have much choice. They're going to have to print money. That is going to come at some point this year. That is definitely going to come at some
Oh,
point this
what,
year.
another round of quantitative? I don't think they'll call it quantitative easing. They'll have to find a new name. But maybe it's already out there. I don't know.
Quantitative massaging. Yeah. 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 There's
Yes.
going to be something else. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, there's got to be a different word, because I think we've played out the quantitative easing
Mm,
statement. There's got to be something else, because the electorate are going to say no more, you know. And then, as you said, we have felt the results of that. Now, one of the things that I pointed out was, I said, look, there's 9 clear things that we can do to make things better.
mhm.
We can't, we can't, if I could just click my finger and everything goes back to normal again, I would do it, but it's impossible. The reality is that we, as a collective people in the world, because this is affecting everywhere,
Mhm.
we need to stop what's going on in the bigger frame of things, because it's destabilizing everything. We can't do that. You and I can't go to Ukraine, Putin. We can't go to Iran, Israel.
Oh my
we
gosh. Yeah. Yeah.
we can't
Yeah.
go to Yemen. We
Mm.
can't go to Syria. Where else is there? We can't go to um I'm trying to think where else there's issues.
Congo, Sudan.
Yeah, Congo, Sudan. Oh gosh, there's too many things. We can't tell the French, to leave North Africa
Get
and stop,
out.
your uranium.
And the rest of Africa. Yeah.
Your uranium mines are gone now. We can't do all of that. So there's going to have to be other things that we can do to be able to make things better. Now, as I said, we're not politicians. We're just regular people on the street that talk about different subjects. And if I can think of things that might make sense, then I know that they can as well. They just choose not to do it. At the present moment in time, you have got companies that, to appease their shareholders, they must have massive profits. Yeah, they have to. Those shareholders have put in money into this company. I'm expecting a return, so they need to do that. The problem being is that they will have those massive, dividend payments, but the people that work for those companies, their wages have definitely not got in line with inflation, and so it's a pay cut. So one of the things that we need to think about is the wages that people are earning needs to be in line, at the very least, with inflation, so that they can keep up with those payments. So they can keep, so that the mouse and the wheel can keep going. They need to at least be paid with the increase, and not in 2 years, in 3 years' time. Oh yeah, we've had to march and we've had to demand, we have to go on strike, and then they backdate a payment. But by the time they've backdated it, you're already now 2% below the market. Do you get what I mean?
Do you see why this is cyclical?
Yeah.
Because to me personally, and I'm not anti-wealth at all. I'm definitely pro-wealth, but the situation is that the very concept of capitalism and profits and companies, the business model is flawed at the inception.
Yeah, because it's there has to be growth.
There has to be infinite growth.
Yeah. Yeah.
That in itself is insane. That's an oxymoron. That doesn't work.
No.
So in order to do that and get to that, you will have them getting rid of everybody.
Yeah.
For example, what you're talking about with energy, look at the water. The water company is owned by private equity firms, like Thames Water is, right?
Yeah.
These guys have the say and are pressuring Thames Water to raise our water rates so that they can then continue to give dividends to shareholders, even though they haven't spent any money on the infrastructure for how many years. They're only starting to do it now because of how bad it is. But it's a crazy situation entirely from top to bottom, that if you take capitalism and you look to its natural conclusion, it literally eats itself.
Yeah.
Right? It literally eats itself. So there'll be no one there except a dividend check every quarter going to a shareholder. But yet it has literally decimated everything else. Private equity firms, I haven't seen one good example of private equity that has benefited the company and its workers after gotten involved into that firm. Not one.
It doesn't exist because it's not for the benefit of them. It's for the benefit of the shareholders.
It's for the shareholders.
And I think that we've got to that stage where, as you said, it eats itself. It doesn't help the average. I want us to talk to the Mr. Average person like me and you. We're the ones that are just trying to make a living and live.
Yep.
I'm not a millionaire. I'm not rich. I just want to be able to work, provide for my family, and give them a better life than the one that I had. Now, in a sense, that is growth. I already believe that I am better than, I live a much different life to the life my parents lived, but because it wasn't hard, to be honest with you, they came from the Caribbean, they didn't have a lot. It's not hard to beat what they did, what they had. I think they were happier, and I would argue that they weren't as complicated. They didn't have as much of a complicated life as maybe what I have now. And that's something that maybe, I'd have to maybe break that down and work that one out, because I always feel like you want to be better, but happiness is one of the things that you want to be happier. There's definitely, that's got to be something that you measure. But anyway, So wages, I said,
Yep.
if there was anything that we could do to make things better, it would be that we're not having this constant battle where workers are earning money, but their buying power is eaten away by inflation, and therefore they're not they are basically worse off. You know, a year from now, what you're earning is not going to be able to buy the things it could buy you a year ago. We
Mm.
need to stop that. There needs to be a mechanism that doesn't allow that to happen. So someone's going to be struggling. You know, as we said, the nurses who are struggling to just basically pay their bills because what they're earning today isn't buying what they need tomorrow.
Yeah.
The
Again,
next,
sorry to cut you. So
yeah,
then that would be very simple to do, in my eyes, anyway. So you take a company, you have the CEO, and you have the workers. So then you should then tie the workers' pay by a multiplier to the CEO's pay,
didn't they used
right?
to do that in the 1900s?
I think they
The
used to have a
It
multiplier.
was like
Yeah.
one, I think it was 1 to 12 or something silly like that.
Yeah.
Now it's 1 to a million. Like,
Yeah.
you know, the owner of a company is quadrillion times
Yeah.
richer than his workforce, and therefore, why
Mm.
would he change? And it's obscene.
Yeah.
It is obscene.
The the
I
the,
feel
the
like I'm
game.
becoming a socialist. I worry myself sometimes.
So what's wrong with socialism, bro? No, seriously. What I
I
like I say,
worry.
I think that we're given these terms and we're given these systems, but
Yeah,
there is nothing to say that you can't take some of the best things of
that's
capitalism
true.
and
That's
take
very
some of the
true.
best things of socialism and
Yeah,
come up with something new. Why
yeah.
is it that we're looking at something as so binary? You're either this or you're that.
No, that's true, and
You know what
that's
I mean?
very true. I think what it is that whenever I think of socialism, my face goes grey, and I see no competition, and competition drives innovation. So I often feel like if you're not competing, you won't grow. I could be wrong, and obviously I'm.
Is that like
Uh,
the Wall Street sort of like the greed is good?
yeah,
Is that what you're saying? Oh, okay.
no, not greed, but I
Mm.
think that iron sharpens iron. And I believe that if another company comes out with something, you will want to do your very best to try and outdo that company. And that drives innovation. And I think my only worry with a completely socialistic society, but we're not talking about, is that, you know, a doctor and a road sweeper and
So
an
who
accountant.
would you say is the most innovative country in the globe?
Um, when it comes to innovation, that's a very good question. I would have said to you somewhere like Japan, Taiwan, or you know, one of those countries over that way, but I don't know. I don't know enough to be able to answer that question. Um, it's a difficult one because obviously lots of the tech that we see today comes out of Asia,
Mm.
um, but in terms of um, living and in terms of basically supporting people, I don't know. I actually, I would love for there to be a model country that modeled itself on a principle and it works.
Mm.
That's maybe for a discussion. Maybe that should be a one of our shows. We can talk about that because that's a interesting topic. You know, are there countries out there that have a, like we talked about El Salvador the other day, where they were
Yeah.
using a system of their prisons for they definitely are zero tolerance with certain crimes,
Yeah.
and their finances are governed by um you know they use crypto and yeah, they may, but there's good and bad in everything, isn't there? And I don't think
Good and
any.
bad in everything, but
Yeah,
you also need to work out what the intention is in the
yeah,
first
yeah, yeah,
place.
yeah, yeah.
So I always look at this country and say, well, what's the intention of government?
What, in the
Who are
UK?
who are they actually here for? Are the government here
um
to help us?
I
Because
think that the
if
problem
they are, then they're very bad at it.
I think that the problem with the UK at the moment, and I'll probably get chewed up for saying this, I think that we are still living under this guise that we're a world power, and so we're still acting like we are one when we just don't have the funds to play those kind of war games. You know, there are many countries out there that have bigger, you know, bigger
Yeah,
bigger budgets for their spending and the will. You know, we have a very small army. And yeah, if you said to me right now that another country's coming over here and they're gonna, you know, they're
yeah,
gonna
but
take your house, I'll fight for my house. You know,
you're
I will.
talking about imperial ambitions,
Yeah, I
right?
think there is still, we still live. I think we're still in and around. There is still that concept that we are. You know,
See,
we rub
I
shoulders.
think that there's still a feudal system that
Yeah.
works behind the scenes.
Okay.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Mm,
And so it's that keeps the system hierarchical and in the
yeah.
way that it keeps it. So therefore, in order to keep it like that, then you're not going to help everyone because you want the system to
You won't
stay.
want to. Yeah. No, I
Yeah.
get that. I get that. So because the other thing that I wanted to talk about was
Mm,
once we had what if so let's just say that this is my sort of like this is my perfect world. So when you said what would we do, this would be my perfect world. The wages we said would be in line with inflation so that people would not struggle.
mm,
We would then also make housing more affordable for the average person to be able to either live in a home via rent or be able to buy a home with a mortgage. I and we're gonna get to
you sounded like a socialist, man.
no this is
You sound like a socialist, bro.
I'm gonna carry on, and then so I'm gonna carry on, and then you can dig me apart afterwards. The third point is the national health that we have, which in many ways is a socialist entity, which we've allowed to be brutalized with privatization. But you know, private funds to help it go was the worst thing it could ever have done because it just sucked it dry. And well, anyway, I would make it so that we don't have the situation we're in right now, where you know you could be waiting months to see a doctor. You know, healthcare. I would make it free through our taxes. So our taxes we would put in, and our taxes will be enough to be able to pay for said medication, operations, that kind of stuff. I don't want it to be a situation where, as we've already seen, certain members of the royal family they get diagnosed today and tomorrow it's gone.
Mm,
You know,
mm,
whereby someone on the street gets told, "Yeah, you may get a diagnosis within 62 days."
yep,
In that
yep.
time, said thing has grown and has gone around your body, and there's no chance of survival. I think that is wrong,
Mm,
and I would change that. Then the next thing I mentioned was investing in our education system because we are letting our kids down. We're dumbing them down. Like, I feel that the kids that come out of school now are not as bright as we were. They're bright in certain things and they're ahead
I
of
was
us.
going to say that's not true.
No, but I think they're ahead of us in certain things. But common sense, general understanding, I believe, is beyond them. But that's just me.
No, that's not
That's
true.
my we
That's
can
not true.
listen, we can agree to
Mm,
disagree.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
I don't know how many young people you work
Mm,
with,
mm.
but over the many years that I've worked with
Don't
many a
libel
young
yourself.
eh?
Don't libel yourself.
Yes, I've worked with many a young person over the decades. And I've always thought we were taught differently to you guys.
Mm,
But then that may well be because the teachers that were teaching them have changed. When I was a teacher, there was at least 20-year gap between me and the tutor.
mm,
You know, now they're a lot younger, getting themselves into a lot more trouble, and it just feels like we've dropped the ball there slightly. We need to maybe put more money into investing into the education system, getting those people to be trained, and not just in office work. We need young people to actually, vocational work. We don't have plumbers in this country. We don't have people that can just, electricians, simple things that we would take for granted. because they've been sold a dream that you need to, you need to be working in an office in part of the whole, globalization, urbanization thing. You live in a city and you work and you go into the, you feed into the rat race. Well, and when you get home, they don't know how to turn on a fridge or
Mm.
wire a plug. And you think we need people that know and understand the the they're not basic. These are very complicated things, but we need plumbers. We need people that can do all of the other work. And we need to educate and encourage young people to go in a different path, because they'll still make their money. They'll
Mm.
still be able to live. And at the moment, have you seen what the average plumber can earn? you know, because obviously there's just not enough young people coming through the system.
I think there's a lot of youngsters getting into the trades and starting to come through.
We are woefully behind.
We're behind, but
Woefully behind in this country. Like there's like reports of do you remember, when was it? Maybe a couple of years ago we had a problem with drivers. Like we just don't have any drivers. Like we were
mm,
just like we need people with heavy goods vehicle licenses, because they just didn't have any. I mean, yes, I know Brexit, a lot of the drivers that we had went back to the mainland, and so there was a massive void. But we suddenly realized we've got a lot of older HGV drivers. We've got no young people coming through the ranks to drive and keep.
okay. So my question then to you is, if you've got a helicopter view of all of these issues,
Yeah,
and you have researched over the last couple of days and figured out what we need to do
yeah,
to solve these issues, why haven't governments been able to do this?
money. It's money. What I'm saying here right now is going to cost money. So let me carry on. So we talked about education, right? But then we get to the crux of the matter, because all these things that I want to do is going to cost money. So when we talk about redistribution of wealth, so that we can reduce this inequality, what we're actually talking about are higher taxes for the rich. So if you're a conservative leader right now, you're stinging your electorate to
Mm.
make this happen. He ain't going to do that. Why is he going to sting his electorate to make that happen? There is no win for him to do that. So they don't.
So it's not just about money then.
But what I'm saying is that, well, money and influence, because I'm going to need to, for me to implement these socialist policies, I'm going to need to basically put more tax on the wealth, but I'm on the wealthy. But I'm also going to attack the tax loopholes that provide all these these loopholes for these big companies. Oh, I'm going to make loads of money in your country, but I'm registered in the Bahamas.
Mm.
I'm going to make loads of money in profits that I can give to my shareholders, but I don't have a a UK office. I'm based in Southern Ireland, so I'm there's so many there's so many little loopholes. I would basically have a task force, pay them good money
Mm.
to shut down these loopholes, to make it fair, because it is unfair that the guy at the bottom of the chain is paying more tax than the richest people. It's wrong. And I know they say, oh, but they bring in business, but they're destroying the economy at the same time.
Did you read about the Panama Papers and the Paradise Papers?
So was the Panama Papers where they found like famous people who were tax dodgers? Was it famous people?
Yeah.
Like, yeah,
And
well,
David Cameron's father.
oh yes. I did hear about that. Yeah, I know. And
So
what was the other
again,
one? It was Panama and what?
Paradise Papers. That was
No,
the follow up.
I don't know the Paradise Papers. I know I heard
Okay.
about the Panama.
Yeah, we should talk about
Yeah.
that one day.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. Well,
yeah.
let me write that down.
But I'm just going to show you that we're talking about the Prime Minister's dad
Yeah.
had money squirreled away in the Bahamas or wherever it was.
Wow.
And so then would you expect David Cameron to change policy that he's going to close down loopholes that would
No. No, and this is why I said what's going to stop this happening is money and influence. So once in my utopian society, we've
Mm. I'm
closed,
liking it though. I'm liking it so
once we
far.
shut down all of the loopholes and this sort of
Hmm.
stuff, we then start to look inwards and look at the people. What do you need? You know, when we were talking about the leveling up in the UK, we were discussing having a train system that would a fast train system that would go from the southern, from southern England to northern England. Which, in theory, if that train worked, you could live in the Midlands or even up north and commute. You could commute because that train travels at 150 miles an hour, whatever it is, 200 miles an hour,
Mm.
and it would get you so you could be working in North London or working in the city, and then you
Hmm.
could get on a train, and then it could be affordable. Do you understand what I mean? Like, if you travel in any direction, 30 miles out of any of the major cities, house prices
Hmm.
become normal again, don't they? They
Yep.
become they become more sensible. I'm I know it sounds what I'm saying, but it's relative. So
Mm.
I'm just outside London. House prices where I live are ridiculous, but that's because I've got Windsor next door to me, so of course it's going to be silly money. But then there are certain places where it's a lot cheaper,
Yep.
to live. If it takes you 2 hours, like, so when I lived in central London, it would still take me 2 hours just to get to work. It would still take me 2 hours. 2 hours of my 4 hours of my life just trying to get to and from work. Well, imagine if we had that high speed rail, or we had other transportation that could get people into work and get them out quickly. And I would invest. That's my point. My point I was making was I would stop messing around with all these silly things that don't work, where they've put billions of pounds here, billions of pounds there, that it's just helped their friends, and it's just these cronies, and it's not worked, and the people have suffered. Well, no, you are going to. This is what it's going to cost. This is what you're going to do. There will be no more money. You're going to quote for it, and if you don't, then guess what? It's on you, not on the taxpayer. The taxpayer's not going to bail you out, because
Mm.
this is what you said. So overquote me. I'd rather you said to me it's going to cost 10 billion than say to me 5 billion, get the quote, and then I need another 5. No.
What I
Oh,
don't understand is why wouldn't you go to the people who built the bullet train and then say, this is what we want to do. You have a track record, you did it. So then why don't you come and do that here?
so I have a theory about that, but I can't share that in this current. But we will talk about that maybe in
Mm.
another show. Who knows? So then, obviously, um, the thing I pointed out was
What
because
number are you up to?
so I had said right. So far, I've gone with. Let me write it down. It was wages, healthcare, education and training, redistribution of wealth, obviously with the tax, a whole overhaul on the whole tax system, cutting out loopholes. Then it would be the transportation, so helping people to be able to get to and from work or to wherever they need to go, and make it easier for people. None of this complex. One system makes it easier. I would regulate the banking world properly. So
Yep.
so we wouldn't have what we had in 2008. And I would also regulate the utilities. So because the utility companies are the ones that we are struggling right now, because we don't know what our prices are going to be for tomorrow. If they're not fixed, with what's going on in Ukraine and what's going on with where we're getting our oil and where we're getting our gas from, we need to have some kind of uniformed attitude towards the price. So
Mm.
everybody, so there's no more. So we're not going to have people who are literally having to choose: do I eat or do I heat my house? We cannot have that. It's just an unacceptable, and it's not something that we should be thinking about.
Yep.
Then once we've got that out, once we've all sorted those things out, the next one was about the policies when it comes to the family. So at the moment, I don't, if a woman chooses to have a baby, it should be, it shouldn't be. difficult. Maternity leave and paternity leave for the partner, sick leave and holiday payments and all these things that the 0 hour contract nonsense, throw it out the window. I don't want any of that nonsense. People need to know what there needs to be a certain amount of confidence with the person, and the contract between the employee and the employer needs to be a little bit more protected, so that you can't just treat people how you want to and just throw them out when if you don't care. That to me is wrong. And I think that the whole concept of, I know that flexible working isn't ideal for certain industries, but if you want to get more people off their bums and actually into work, then maybe that's the route you're going to have to go down. How many women are, honestly, I've lost count the amount of women I've spoken to who want to work, but they just can't afford the childcare to be able to work, because childcare is eye-watering. We talked about old people home payments. Try having a baby and trying to negotiate earning because remember, once you earn over a certain amount, then you're not going to have any of the protections in terms of what's the word I'm thinking, benefits and those kind of things. You won't, you price yourself out of it. So it's, for some people, it's just not worth it. They might as well stay at home. There's no point in them doing it. That is another thing as well I'd want them to fix. And also, now this is where I'm being a bit of a hypocrite here, because I said to you that I felt that the younger people today don't have the same training that we did when we were at school. And I'm being a hypocrite because I believe that we didn't get the financial training that maybe they get today. So we did economics, supply and demand, but actually I just need to know, what does APR mean? What does this credit card, what will taking out this loan mean in terms of my payments? What does variable mean? What does
financial literacy?
Financial literacy. These are the sort of things that we 100% need to drum in to our young people who are, secondary school and university, and before they get to adulthood, and then it's too late. And they make a decision that they think, oh, why did I do that? Why did I get into that contract? That made no sense. These are sort of things that I would like to put in. Now, I'm not saying that that's going to be that would end the cost of living crisis, but I think it would definitely help if we were able to put those things in place, because the alternative is what we're going through now, where it's a free for all. And that to me is more worrying. I mean, what we're going through at this stage at the moment is there are loopholes. We don't tax the rich. We tax the poorest people the most, and then wonder why they've got no money. And then we beat them down when it comes to, because we haven't even mentioned the mental health aspect to all of this. How many people have ended their lives? How many people are in hospital right now? How many people are sitting on a sofa right now, not knowing what they're going to eat, knowing if they're going to even see tomorrow? I mean, honestly, you would be amazed at how much all of the things that we've talked about are affecting people, especially when it comes to their mental health. And it's worrying. And so when I was doing the video that I did yesterday, all of these things I put into it because I thought, it'd be good to put this all together. And if I'm wrong, challenge me on it. Because as I said, I learn from discussion. You and I will argue about whether young people are smarter than they were today or smarter than they were yesterday. To me, that's good. I like that, because I have an impression of something. If you say to me something else, I've learned something. I can either agree or disagree with you. But if you show me facts, I can't argue with it, can I? We are now, as two regular guys, talking about things that we think will improve and make the cost of living easier for people today. But you're telling me that governments can't do that because their hands are tied behind their backs by people that contribute to their party. It's not towing the party line. Those things there, we would probably need a revolution to implement it, because it wouldn't work. No, Labour Labour ain't doing that. Conservatives ain't doing that. Lib Dems ain't doing that. Green Party ain't doing that.
No, but you've literally you've hit the nail on the head. I'm not advocating for revolution, by the way. I'm just saying that in order to get all of the things that you just mentioned,
Yeah.
that's what it would take.
Systemic change.
Systemic change from top to bottom, because, like I said before, it's what the intention is. Is the intention to help us or not? And
Yeah.
as far you mentioned 10 things, all good, worthy, sensible, common sense approaches to
Yeah.
problems that we have. And they have not one of those in their arsenal.
No.
And that can't be because they're too dumb to think up any of
No.
them.
No.
It's by design.
Yeah.
They look at it like this. If after every tenure of politicians or a political party, we always end up worse off, how
Yeah.
come they don't?
Like I would like, and this is totally controversial, but I would like each term. So right in the UK, it's 4 years, right? Yeah, 4-year term, or 5. I can't remember. Anyway, whatever the term period is for the political party, I believe that they should have an obligation to balance their books. Whatever they spent must be balanced at the end of their shift, so that the next party that comes in can start with their balance and keep going. You should not. So it's not a situation where the party that's in now creates a debt for the next party coming in. It's unfair, because I remember, and the reason that I thought about this was, believe it or not, was when Bush, the second Bush, was in power, and Obama came in behind him. And I always used to think Obama is never going to have a chance. He can't put in any of his reforms because he's dealing with a country that's been at war for several years at that moment, at that time, has spent billions and billions. And then when he came in and said, "Yeah, I want to put in my system," there was no money for that. And then obviously he spent loads of money, which then sucked in who was it? Trump that came in after him. Was it Trump? Yeah, it must have been Trump. Yeah. So then then Trump comes in, and Trump has to deal with what Bush did before then, what Obama did then. Now he's dealing with it. Now he's a businessman, so he was, you know what it was like. He was going around saying, "Yeah, ripping up that contract, forget that. NATO, what's that? Forget that." He was doing all these things, and because he was trying to balance the books, you can see he's got that brain in him. He's like, "I'm a businessman. This don't make any sense. This contract's rubbish. I'm going to rip that one up." And he was going through, and obviously he was peeing off a lot of people. I get it. He was peeing off a great deal of people by doing that. But there are a lot of people out there, as we've seen now, that truly respected what he did. They may not have liked his principles, but there are a lot of people that went, "Yeah, I can see why you're doing that." And this whole "Make America Great Again," we will probably see part 2 of that this year as we lead up. Sorry, I just hit my mic. As it leads up to the elections, we're going to see it. And I'm interested. I've got my popcorn ready, and I'm just going to eat. And hopefully the United Kingdom doesn't get sucked in.
I'm going to reserve judgment on Trump. Let's see what happens.
I'm not a Trump supporter. And don't get me wrong, Biden is on his last legs anyway, because he's not a well man. He's an older man, and you need to be to have the biggest job in the world. You need to at least be, strong enough and competent enough.
Cognizant.
Yeah, exactly. So it is pretty much a crazy one, and I'm looking forward to it. I just realized the time. I know we always say, well, so far, do you know what? Since we've been doing these, we've always been good with the timekeeping.
Yeah.
So this time we've failed miserably. But that's what happens when we chat. So I'm going to end it here. I'd like you to give some concluding comments, please, Mr. D.
Okay. I don't think we'll get to any of the points that you raised, although great points. I think that attacks on assets would be more effective than a tax on wealth.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Something like assets over 5-10 million or something like that. I think you could then adequately get a much better equal distribution or redistribution of wealth that way.
So which one is so yeah, okay, because assets are more difficult to move, I'm assuming. In a sense of an asset could be a factory, could be a football stadium, it could be a yeah, I get what you're saying, where wealth is probably more transient. You can move wealth.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, I get that.
And a lot of people get scared by that as well, thinking that because they're on 100 grand, no, we don't want your 100 grand. Yeah, that's not wealth.
No.
Hundreds of millions, yes, that's what they're talking about.
And I think no, I get that.
Yeah.
So yeah, sorry, I stopped you with your concluding comments.
I think the government, what they could actually do is something with VAT, abolish it or something like that.
Abolish it.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
I think they could get rid of it.
Yeah. And then what would we have in its place?
It's like a double taxation, isn't it?
Yeah, but what I'm saying is would you? So are you saying that there would be no VAT? So what would you have instead?
You could bring in something else that makes more sense rather than, because as it stands, it's a double taxation.
How about not taxing your wages, but leaving VAT?
One of the two. Yeah. Maybe.
So you get 100% of the money you earned.
But then they're going to tax goods and services, right?
Yes. So that, because as you're right, yeah.
Also, the poorest in society should probably be helped first, so they could immediately. One of the things they could do would be to increase benefits in line with inflation.
Yeah. There's someone comment. Someone said, as if tax can help UK to get out of the nightmare it's in. Yeah, John, you're right. I don't think it's we were spitballing. We were basically trying to think of ways in which we could help, and that's just one part of it. There are lots and lots of things that we are going to need to do to help people to get out of this, and it is a nightmare. And it's I wish you'd come in earlier because we would have been able to maybe dug a little bit deeper into it. We're just about to end, but I do think that there are lots of things that we need to do to make it better. One of the things would be the tax situation. Not money printing would be great. How about stop your money printing? Stop this quantitative nonsense, because we've got too much money in the economy. It's wearing down. The value of the pound is dropping. The dollar is dropping because they've just put so much of this funny money in there. But then obviously if we were to suck it all out, we'd have a recession. So it's not an easy. It isn't an easy. It's not an easy answer. But anyway, thank you very much for your comment. I really do appreciate that. So, Mr. D, I think we're going to leave it there.
Yep.
Because we have gone way over time, and I'm looking forward to our discussion next week. Not quite sure what it's about. It's your choice, as it was mine this week.
Oh, yes.
So when you are ready, send me your WhatsApp, and then I will do some discussion, and we will do some research. So,
cool.
As always, thank you very, very much. If you're watching the replay, please hit the thumbs up for us. And if you haven't, please check the video that I put up yesterday about the cost of living. I really do hope that you enjoy it, and leave some comments on it, because obviously the comments are what help me to grow. And we will see you in the next show. So peace out. See you in the next one.